The massive space station hung in the void like a silver wheel spinning slowly against the stars. Inside its gleaming halls, delegates from across the galaxy gathered for another session of the Galactic Council. The air buzzed with conversation, in dozens of languages, as representatives took their seats in the Great Chamber. Ambassador Lisa Warren walked through the corridors with steady steps. She had done this walk many times over the past 3 years since Earth joined the galactic community. Her blue uniform bore the simple emblem of humanity, a golden Earth, surrounded by 12 stars representing their colonies. The chamber itself was a wonder of engineering. Curved walls rose high above, covered in viewing screens that showed the homeworlds of each member species. The floor was arranged in concentric circles, with the most powerful civilizations sitting closest to the center podium. Lisa took her place in the outer ring. Humanity was still new here, still proving itself worthy of respect among the older races. Around her sat representatives she had come to know well. Insect-like Cathera clicked their mandibles in greeting. The crystal beings called Vorthok chimed soft musical notes. The gaseous nebulan floated in their containment suits, communicating through color changes. But today felt different. Lisa could sense tension in the chamber that had not been there before. Whispered conversations stopped when certain delegates walked by. Nervous glances passed between the smaller species. Something was coming. The session began with routine matters. Trade disputes between the Rigel sector worlds. Resource allocation for the Joint Research Station at Alpha Centauri. Lisa participated in the discussions, presenting humanity's positions with calm professionalism. Her people had learned to speak carefully in these halls. Where a wrong word could spark conflicts between worlds, then Counselor Vex Morlock rose from his seat near the center of the chamber. The Zenthari were an imposing sight. Tall as humans, but broader, with thick scales covering their bodies in patterns of dark green and gold. Their yellow eyes could fix on you with unsettling intensity. Morlock was larger than most of his kind, with scars across his face that spoke of battles fought in younger days. Fellow council members, Morlock began, his voice carrying easily through the chamber. We have overlooked a growing danger for too long. We have been too trusting, too willing to welcome newcomers without properly examining their intentions. Lisa felt her stomach tighten. She had heard rumors that Morlock was planning something, but hoped they were wrong. The humans, Morlock continued, turning to gesture toward Lisa's section, have expanded at an alarming rate. In just 50 years, they have claimed 12 worlds. Their military grows stronger each month. Their ships patrol space lanes that were once the domain of older, more established civilizations. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. Lisa wanted to stand and respond. Protocol demanded she wait for the formal accusation. Morlock activated a holographic display above the chamber. Images filled the air, showing human ships in formation, human colonies under construction, human factories producing goods that competed with established trade routes. Look at these military exercises, Morlock said, pointing to footage of Earth's defense fleet. Do these look like the actions of a peaceful species? They practice attack formations. They test new weapons. They build ships designed for war, not exploration. Lisa recognized the footage. Those were routine training missions, the kind every species conducted to maintain their forces. But Morlock presented them as evidence of aggressive intent. Industrial capacity grows beyond all reasonable limits, the Zenthari continued. They build faster than they can possibly need for their own use. Where are these extra ships going? What are these extra weapons for? More images showed human shipyards and manufacturing centers. Lisa knew the truth. Humanity was building rapidly to catch up with civilizations that had thousands of years head start. But in Morlock's presentation, it looked like preparation for conquest. The numbers do not lie, Morlock declared. Human military strength has increased by 300% in the last decade. Their territorial claims have expanded to cover strategic positions throughout this sector. They seek to control trade routes, resource deposits, and communication networks. Lisa could see some delegates nodding along with Morlock's words. Fear was a powerful tool, and the Zenthari counselor wielded it expertly. I have here testimony from merchants who report human interference in their business. Military commanders who describe human ships appearing in their territory without invitation. Civilians who speak of human colonies expanding beyond their agreed boundaries. Each accusation built on the last.
Ow.
Lisa knew that most were exaggerations or outright lies. But they were presented with such confidence that doubt began to spread through the chamber. Therefore, Morlock announced, his voice rising to fill the great space, I propose we take action before this threat grows beyond our ability to contain it. Humanity must reduce their military forces by 70%. They must abandon their outer colonies and withdraw to their original territory. They must submit to oversight by an established council member to ensure compliance with galactic law. The chamber erupted in surprised murmurs. Lisa felt her heart race as the full scope of Morlock's demand became clear. Furthermore, the Zenthari continued, if humanity refuses these reasonable requirements, we must consider their actions a declaration of war against the peaceful species of this galaxy. Now, Lisa could remain silent no longer. She stood, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she faced. Counselor Morlock, she said, these accusations are completely false. Humanity has followed every treaty and agreement we have signed. We have contributed to joint research projects, participated in peacekeeping missions, and opened our markets to trade with all council members. But Morlock had spent months building support for this moment. Species that feared human competition and trade spoke up in agreement. Military commanders who saw human technology as a threat added their voices. Smaller civilizations that worried about being overshadowed by human expansion remained silent rather than oppose the powerful Zenthari. The evidence speaks for itself, Morlock replied coldly. Humanity's actions demonstrate clear aggressive intent. Cannot ignore this threat any longer. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was already decided. Morlock had done his work well, building a coalition of fear and self-interest that could not be swayed by facts or reason. When the vote was called, it passed by a narrow margin. Humanity had 30 Earth days to comply with the Council's demands, or face the consequences. As the session ended and delegates began to file out, Lisa remained in her seat for a moment, processing what had just happened. 3 years of careful diplomacy, building relationships, improving humanity's peaceful intentions, had been swept away by one ambitious counselor's political maneuvering. She activated her communication device and sent an urgent message to Earth. Admiral Jake Collins at Strategic Command needed to know immediately what they were facing. Within hours, the message reached Earth's capital. President Helen Moore was awakened in the middle of the night to receive the news that would change everything. The cabinet was summoned for an emergency session that would last until dawn. Humanity faced an impossible choice: submit to demands. That would leave Earth defenseless and abandon colonies where millions of humans had built new lives. Refuse and face a war against overwhelming odds. As Lisa finally left the council chamber, she knew that whatever happened next would determine not just humanity's place in the galaxy, but whether they would have any place in it at all. The emergency alarm echoed through the halls of Earth's Strategic Command Center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Admiral Jake Collins rushed through the corridors as staff members hurried to their stations. The message from Ambassador Warren had arrived just hours ago, and already the machinery of government was spinning into action. President Helen Moore stood in the Situation Room, surrounded by her top advisors. The large screens on the walls showed star maps, fleet positions, and communication feeds from human colonies across 12 worlds. Her face was calm, but Jake could see the worry in her eyes. Admiral, she said as Jake entered the room, tell me we have options. Jake pulled up a holographic display showing human military assets. We have 67 ships of the line, 300 smaller vessels, and defense platforms around each colony world. Against the combined forces of the Galactic Council, we're outnumbered 50-1. Secretary of Defense Patricia Hayes leaned forward. What about our newer technologies? The stealth systems, the quantum computers, the fusion drives. Unknown quantities, Jake admitted. We've never tested them in real combat against alien technologies. We could have advantages they don't know about, or they could have capabilities that make our weapons useless. Dr. Ryan Foster, head of Xenological Affairs spoke up from his position at the communications console. I've been reaching out to our contacts on the council. The Vorthok are uncomfortable with this decision. The Nebulans seem genuinely surprised by the accusations. But none of them are willing to oppose Morlock openly. President Moore studied the displays showing human colonies. Families lived on those worlds. Children had been born there who had never seen Earth. Millions of people who trusted their government to protect them. "What are our legal options?" she asked. "Limited," Dr. Foster replied. "The Council Charter allows for collective action against species deemed threats to galactic peace. Morlock has followed the proper procedures even if his evidence is fabricated." Admiral Collins activated another display showing Xanthari fleet movements. Intelligence reports suggest they're already mobilizing. Morlock isn't planning to wait the full 30 days if he thinks he can pressure us into quick surrender. Then we need to buy time, President Moore decided. We need to find out what we're really dealing with, within hours, every human ship. Captain in Space received new orders. Long-range scouts began mapping Xanthari fleet positions. Deep space monitoring stations went to full alert. Colonial governors received emergency protocols for civilian evacuation. Captain Alex Turner received his orders aboard the exploration vessel Horizon while investigating an asteroid field near the edge of human space. His mission changed from mineral surveys to intelligence gathering. The Horizon's advanced sensors could track ship movements across multiple star systems without being detected. On the colony world of New Boston, Governor Maria Santos called an emergency assembly. The colonists needed to know what they faced, but panic would serve no one. She stood before 3,000 people in the main meeting hall and delivered the news with steady words. "We came here to build new lives," she told them. "We knew the risks when we left Earth. Now those risks have a name and a deadline. But we are not helpless, and we are not alone." The response surprised even Santos. Instead of fear, the colonists showed determination. Families who had carved homes from wilderness were not easily intimidated. They began organizing civilian militias and evacuation plans with the same spirit that had brought them to the stars. Meanwhile, Ambassador Warren requested a formal hearing before the full council. The request was granted, giving humanity a chance to present their side of the story. Warren worked day and night preparing her defense, gathering evidence of human cooperation and peaceful intentions. Dr. Foster coordinated with human scientists. Across the galaxy, Dr. Ellen Clark, on Kepler Station, provided data on medical advances humanity had shared freely with other species. Engineer Ben Davis demonstrated terraforming technology that turned barren worlds into gardens without displacing existing life forms. When the hearing convened, Warren presented her case with careful precision. She showed recordings of first contact missions where human crews followed strict non-interference protocols. She provided economic data, proving human trade benefited all participants. She presented testimony from alien civilians who had been helped by human aid programs. "Counselor Morlock speaks of human aggression," Warren said, addressing the assembled delegates. "But where is the evidence of human attacks? Where are the worlds we have conquered? Where are the species we have enslaved?" The chamber listened. In uncomfortable silence, Warren's evidence was compelling, but Morlock had built his coalition carefully. Fear and self-interest proved stronger than facts. "The humans speak well," Morlock replied when Warren finished, "but actions matter more than words. Their military grows. Their territory expands. Technology advances at dangerous speed. We cannot wait for them to show their true nature when it may be too late to stop them." The Council granted humanity an additional 2 weeks, but maintained the ultimatum. It was a small victory, but Warren knew it might be their last chance to find another solution. That chance came from an unexpected source. Captain Amy Rodriguez, commanding the science vessel Discovery, was conducting research in the Outer Rim when she encountered ships that did not appear on any official registry. The vessels were sleek and fast, clearly built for stealth and speed rather than combat. The ships belonged to the Veil Consortium, a secretive organization of traders and information brokers who operated in the galaxy's shadowy corners. Their leader, a being who called himself only Navigator, agreed to meet with Rodriguez in neutral space. The Xanthari fear you because you remind them of themselves when they were young, Navigator explained through a translation device. But you are not like them. You build where they conquered. You share where they hoarded. You show mercy where they showed none. The consortium had been watching the crisis develop with great interest. They had no love for the Xanthari, who had tried to shut down their operations in the past. More importantly, they had information humanity desperately needed. Morlach's support is not as solid as he pretends, Navigator revealed. Many council members joined him from fear, not conviction. The Cathera question his motives. The Nebulan suspect his evidence. The smaller species worry about Xanthari dominance more than human expansion. The consortium provided detailed intelligence about Xanthari military capabilities, fleet positions, and political weaknesses. In return, they asked only for favorable trade agreements in the future. It was information that could change everything. Rodriguez transmitted the data to Earth immediately. Admiral Collins studied the reports with growing excitement. The Xanthari were powerful, but they had weaknesses. Their fleet was large, but spread thin. Their technology was advanced, but inflexible. Their tactics relied on overwhelming force rather than strategic thinking. Most importantly, intelligence revealed something that changed President Moore's entire approach to the crisis. The Xanthari home system contained extensive civilian populations and critical infrastructure, but it was defended by only a fraction of their total fleet. Morlock had positioned most of his ships for offensive operations. Leaving his own worlds vulnerable, President Moore called another emergency meeting. This time, her advisors saw a different look in her eyes. Not fear, but determination. "We're not going to submit," she announced. "And we're not going to fight a conventional war we cannot win. We're going to show them exactly what humanity learned during the Titan Wars." Admiral Collins understood immediately. During humanity's expansion through their own solar system, they had faced impossible odds before. Asteroid pirates with superior numbers, corporate fleets with better weapons. Each time, humanity had survived through superior tactics, better intelligence, and the willingness to take calculated risks.
Operation Silent Thunder,
Collins asked.
Operation Silent Thunder, more confirmed.
Let's show the galaxy what humans do when they're backed into a corner. The orders went out immediately. Every human ship received new mission parameters. Colonial defense forces began implementing contingency plans developed years ago by strategic planners who had feared exactly this scenario. Humanity would not surrender. They would not fight a war of destruction. Instead, they would demonstrate their capabilities in a way that protected innocent lives while sending an unmistakable message to anyone who threatened Earth's children. The galaxy was about to learn why underestimating humanity was always a mistake. The Xanthari home system of Mordock looked peaceful from a distance. 3 blue-green worlds orbited a yellow star, their surfaces dotted with the lights of billions of inhabitants. Massive orbital stations processed raw materials from asteroid mines. Defense platforms hung in space like metal flowers, their weapons pointed outward, toward potential threats. Counselor Vex Morlock stood on the command deck of his flagship, the crusher of enemies, watching patrol ships move through their assigned routes. His fleet was the pride of the Xanthari military. 200 ships of various sizes, armed with plasma cannons and particle beams that could crack planets. No enemy had ever penetrated the Mordock system's defenses. "Status report, Morlock," demanded from his tactical officer. "All defensive positions secure, sir. Long-range sensors show no enemy contacts within 50 light-years. The human deadline expires in 6 days. Intelligence suggests they are still debating surrender." Morlock's scaled lips pulled back in what might have been a smile. Humans think too much they will surrender rather than face certain destruction. Their soft hearts cannot accept the casualties we would inflict. On the bridge of his ship, General Vex Korvax studied tactical displays with growing unease. As the Xanthari military's chief strategist, he had studied human conflicts throughout their history. What he found did not match Morlock's confident predictions. Sir Korvax said carefully, "Human military doctrine shows they adapt quickly to new threats. Their expansion through their solar system involves several conflicts against superior forces. They won through unconventional tactics. Morlock waved dismissively. Ancient history. Primitive weapons against other primitives. They have never faced a true galactic power. Korvax's concerns were well-founded. At that very moment, ships were moving through space in ways that Xanthari sensors could not detect. Humanity's stealth technology had advanced far beyond what they revealed to the Galactic Council. While other species focused on bigger weapons and stronger shields, humans perfected the art of remaining invisible. Commander Steve Mitchell floated in the zero-gravity command center of the Defiance, one of humanity's most advanced reconnaissance vessels. His ship hung motionless in the darkness between star systems, its hull coated with materials that absorbed sensor beams instead of reflecting them back. "Scanning complete," reported Lieutenant Sarah Kim from her sensor station. "We have full tactical data on the Mordock system. Defense patterns, patrol routes, communication frequencies, everything." Mitchell studied the holographic display showing Xanthari positions. Years of military training had taught him to look for weaknesses in enemy formations. What he saw made him smile grimly. "They're fighting the last war," he told his crew. "Look at those defense platforms. Perfect for stopping an invasion fleet trying to force its way through. Useless against what we're planning." The Defiance was not alone.
Ow.
Other stealth ships had taken positions throughout the Mordock system over the past week. Their crews were hand-picked volunteers who understood the risks. If they were discovered, it would mean war. If they succeeded, it might prevent one. At exactly 0800 Xanthari Standard Time, the operation began. On the Xanthari homeworld, a factory worker named Grix was operating a plasma cutter when his control panel suddenly displayed text in perfect Xanthari script. Similar messages appeared on every screen, every display, every communication device across all three worlds. Simultaneously, humanity does not wish war, but we will not submit to tyranny. This is our only warning. For exactly 60 seconds, the message held. Then it vanished, replaced by normal operations. But the implications sent shockwaves through Xanthari. Society Morlock received the emergency communication on his flagship's bridge. "Sir, every system in the homeworlds just displayed the same message. Communications, transportation, manufacturing, entertainment, everything." "Impossible," Morlock snarled. "Our networks are secure. No alien technology could penetrate them." But General Korvax was already checking with his staff officers. The reports coming in painted a terrifying picture. The humans had not just accessed their communications. They had demonstrated complete control over Xanthari technology. "Sir," a communications officer reported with a trembling voice, "all military satellites have gone offline. Defense platforms are not responding to commands. Our own ships are showing system malfunctions." On the surface of the second world, Major Vex Talon commanded the Planetary Defense Center, buried deep underground. His facility controlled the orbital weapons and planetary shields that protected 50 million civilians. When his screens went dark, he felt cold fear creep up his spine. "Emergency power," shouted to his technicians. "Get our systems back online?" But even the backup systems displayed the same message. For 10 minutes, the Xanthari military found itself completely blind and helpless. Their weapons would not fire. Their communications could not reach their own ships. Their sensors showed nothing but static. Lieutenant Colonel Karen Bell monitored the operation from the intelligence vessel Phantom, positioned safely beyond the system's edge. Her equipment tracked every Xanthari communication, every panicked message between their commanders. Phase 1 complete, she reported to Admiral Collins on Earth. All primary systems compromised. No hostile response detected. Beginning Phase 2. Phase 2 was even more impressive. Human technicians had studied Xanthari technology for years, through legitimate trade and scientific exchanges. They learned how Xanthari computers processed information, how their networks communicated, how their security systems functioned. More importantly, they found the weaknesses. Every Xanthari system relied on quantum processors that operated on specific frequencies. Human computer viruses were designed to exploit those exact frequencies. When the stealth ships transmitted their data packets, they did not break into Xanthari systems. They convinced those systems that the human commands were legitimate Xanthari orders. For 10 minutes, humanity controlled the most powerful military force in the galaxy. They could have destroyed every ship, every weapon, every defense platform in the Mordock system. Instead, they chose to demonstrate restraint. The orbital defense platforms powered down in sequence, their weapons going silent one by one, Xanthari. Patrol ships found their engines shutting off, leaving them drifting helplessly in space. Communication networks carried only the messages humanity chose to allow. On his flagship, Morlock watched his tactical displays show the impossible. Every icon representing Xanthari military assets had turned red, indicating system failures. His own ship's weapons would not respond to commands. How? He demanded. How did they do this? General Korvac had been studying the patterns of system failures. His military mind recognized the precision behind the attack. Sir, this was not random. They targeted every military system while leaving civilian infrastructure untouched. They demonstrated they could destroy us, but chose not to. The implications were staggering. Humanity could disable Xanthari defenses so easily. What else could they do? How long had they possessed this capability? Why had they kept it secret? Captain Nicole White observed the chaos from her position aboard the stealth ship Whisper. Her crew had been responsible for infiltrating the main communication hub on the Third World. Through her ship's sensors, she watched Xanthari military commanders trying desperately to regain control of their own systems. Time remaining? She asked her tactical officer. 3 minutes until full restoration, came the reply. Those 3 minutes felt like hours to the Xanthari. Across their home system, military personnel sat helplessly as their most advanced technology failed them completely. The humans could have used this time to destroy everything. Instead, they did nothing except watch. Then, as suddenly as it began, the demonstration ended. Xanthari systems came back online, weapons powered up, communications cleared. Defense platforms resumed their normal operations, but the message was unmistakable. Humanity had reached into the heart of Xanthari space and touched their most vital systems. They could do it again anytime they chose. The news spread through the galaxy within hours. Species that had supported Morlock's ultimatum began questioning their decision. The Cathara Hive Queen sent private messages to Ambassador Warren expressing regret for her earlier vote. The Vorthok Crystalline Union withdrew from the anti-human coalition entirely. But Morlock, rather than accepting the demonstration as proof of human capability and restraint, saw only humiliation. His political career depended on Xanthari military supremacy. If humanity could make his fleets helpless with the push of a button, what did that say about his leadership? Prepare for immediate assault, he ordered his commanders. This was an act of war. They have shown their true nature. We will respond with overwhelming force. General Korvac tried one last time to reason with him. Sir, they could have destroyed us. They chose mercy. Perhaps we should reconsider our position. Never, Morlock snarled. Xanthari do not bow to inferior species. Signal the full fleet. We attack in 72 hours. The die was cast. Humanity had shown they preferred peace, but Morlock's pride would not allow him to accept the olive branch. The galaxy held its breath, knowing that what came next would determine the future of every species in the Council. War was coming. This time there would be no demonstrations or warnings. This time humanity would have to prove they coved the first shots of the war came without warning. Xanthari battlecruisers dropped out of hyperspace near the human colony of New Geneva and opened fire on the orbital defense platforms. Admiral Jake Collins watched the attack through real-time feeds from his command center on Earth, his face grim as explosions lit up the darkness of space. Casualties? He asked his communications officer. Minimal, sir. The platforms evacuated. Their crews yesterday? Most of the defensive fire is automated. Collins nodded. They had known this was coming. Intelligence reports showed Xanthari fleets moving toward human territory for days. Every civilian in the outer colonies had been evacuated to safer worlds or underground shelters. The Xanthari expected to not find unprepared defenders and terrified populations. Instead, they found empty stations and automated systems designed to. By time, Morlock had wanted a quick victory to restore his reputation. What he got was an enemy that refused to fight the way he expected. Captain Nicole White received her orders aboard the attack ship. Lightning as Xanthari forces bombarded the colony's outer defenses. Her squadron of 12 ships had been waiting in the asteroid belt beyond the planet's moons, invisible to enemy sensors. All ships, this is lead, she transmitted to her pilots. Target the supply vessels first. Weapons free. The human ships moved like hunting wolves. Her Xanthari tactics relied on massive formations and overwhelming firepower. Humans fought. With speed and precision, their smaller vessels darted between enemy ships, striking at weak points and vanishing before the Xanthari could respond. Lieutenant Dave Johnson piloted his fighter through a storm of enemy fire. Her ships advanced, computers calculating attack vectors faster than organic minds could process. The Xanthari had bigger guns, but human technology made every shot count. Direct hit on their command ship, Johnson reported as his missiles found their target. Their formation is breaking up. The battle for New Geneva lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the Xanthari held the orbital space around an empty world. While human forces had destroyed a third of their supply fleet, Morlock claimed victory, but his generals knew better. They had won nothing but worthless rocks and metal. General Korvac studied the battle reports with growing concern. The humans were not fighting like any enemy the Xanthari had faced before. They struck without warning, disappeared when confronted, and always seemed to know where Xanthari forces would be. Their intelligence network is better than ours, he reported to Morlock. They evacuate areas before we attack. They know our fleet movements. They hit our supply lines instead of our main forces. Morlock dismissed these concerns. Coward tactics. They run because they cannot stand against our power. Continue the advance. Take their core worlds. But the advance proved harder than expected. Human forces used every asteroid field, every nebula, every debris field, as cover for ambush attacks. They had learned to fight a three-dimensional war in space, while the Xanthari still thought in terms of planetary conquest. Commander Tony Garcia led a daring raid against the Xanthari forward supply base at Kepler 7. His mission was to gather intelligence about enemy operations. But what he found there changed everything. The base's computer systems contained detailed records of Xanthari military operations throughout their empire. Garcia's team copied everything before planting charges that would destroy the facility. Among the data was evidence that would shake the galaxy. Dr. Sandra Kim analyzed the captured information from her laboratory on Earth. What she discovered made her call Admiral Collins immediately. "Sir, you need to see this," she said, transmitting her findings. Morlock's war is not about containing human expansion. Look at these internal communications. The files revealed the truth behind Xanthari aggression. Their economy was failing due to corruption and mismanagement. Social unrest was growing on their home worlds. The military consumed resources needed for civilian programs. Morlock had started the war to distract his people from domestic problems. Collins shared the intelligence with President Moore and her cabinet. The revelation changed their entire strategy. If their economy is weak, we target their trade routes, the president decided. If their people are unhappy, we show them the truth about their leaders. This war ends when the Xanthari people realize what Morlock has cost them. Captain Brad Johnson commanded the electronic warfare vessel Silent Storm, one of humanity's most advanced ships. His mission was to monitor Xanthari communications and spread the captured intelligence to their population. Working with alien refugees who had fled Xanthari oppression years earlier, Johnson's team broadcast the truth about Morlock's motivations directly to Xanthari homeworlds. The transmissions bypassed government censors and reached ordinary citizens who had no idea. Why their sons and daughters were dying in a distant war, the effect was immediate. Protests erupted on Xanthari worlds as families demanded answers about the war's purpose. Workers refused to build weapons for a conflict they now knew was started by lies. Military recruitment dropped as young Zenthari learned the truth about their government's deception. Meanwhile, other Galactic Council species began withdrawing their support for the Zenthari cause. The Nebulan Collective discovered that Zenthari forces had been attacking their mining operations and blaming humans for the raids. The Vorthok found evidence that Morlock had promised them territory that humans had already agreed to share peacefully. Ambassador, Warren worked tirelessly to rebuild the Coalition for Peace. Species that had voted for the ultimatum out of fear now saw humanity's restraint in victory. The Cathara privately contacted Warren to discuss switching sides in the conflict. The humans fight with honor, the Cathara Queen transmitted. They protect civilians. They share captured intelligence. They seek justice, not conquest. But Morlock refused to accept defeat. As his political support crumbled and his military advantages disappeared, he made increasingly desperate decisions. He ordered attacks on civilian targets, hoping to force human surrender through terror. General Hayes led the defense of the agricultural world of New Awa. When Zenthari forces targeted its food production facilities, the attack failed when human defenders used the planet's grain silos as improvised fortifications, turning peaceful farmland into a fortress. They're trying to starve us into submission, Hayes reported to Collins. But they don't understand that humans fight harder when threatened with extinction. The war's turning point came when Morlock concentrated his remaining forces for one final assault on Earth itself. Intelligence suggested that capturing humanity's homeworld would end the conflict quickly. He committed his entire reserve fleet to the attack. It was exactly what Admiral Collins had been waiting for. All units, this is command. Collins transmitted to human forces throughout the galaxy. Operation Final Thunder is authorized. The Zenthari home system. While Morlock's forces traveled toward Earth, human ships moved toward Mordok. The Zenthari had left their own worlds defended by only skeleton crews, confident that no enemy would dare attack their heartland. They were wrong. Commander Mitchell's stealth ships disabled the orbital defenses using the same techniques they had demonstrated months earlier. This time, there would be no warnings and no mercy for military targets. The battle for the Aldrin Nebula lasted 3 days. Morlock's fleet, already weakened by months of asymmetric warfare, found itself caught between human forces and the realization that their homeworlds were under attack. Captain White led the final assault on Morlock's flagship. Her squadron penetrated the enemy formation using tactics perfected in countless smaller engagements. Precision strikes disabled the ship's weapons and engines while leaving life support intact. When the crusher of enemies drifted helpless in, Space Morlock faced the choice that would define his legacy: surrender and face trial for his crimes, or fight to the death and take his crew with him. He chose surrender. The war ended not with Earth's destruction, but with Zenthari forces in full retreat and their leader in human custody. The galaxy watched in amazement as humanity offered terms that were generous rather than vengeful. General Korvac, speaking for the Provisional Zenthari government, accepted human conditions for peace. War reparations would be paid through humanitarian aid rather than tribute. Zenthari military forces would be reduced but not eliminated. Democratic reforms would be implemented gradually rather than imposed by force. You have defeated us completely, Korvac admitted during the surrender ceremony. But you treat us with more honor than we showed you. This is why you won. The war that Morlock started to prove Zenthari's superiority had instead demonstrated humanity's wisdom. They had won through intelligence rather than brutality, through precision rather than destruction, through mercy rather than vengeance. But the hardest part was yet to come. Rebuilding trust between species, helping former enemies recover from their defeat, and creating a galaxy where such conflicts might never happen again would require all the patience and wisdom humanity could provide. ULD win. 6 months after the war ended, the Zenthari homeworld looked very different from space. The orbital shipyards that once built weapons of conquest now stood empty. Trade ships that had carried goods across the galaxy no longer came to Zenthari. Ports, the proud empire that had threatened humanity, was learning what defeat truly meant. Ambassador Lisa Warren walked through the halls of the rebuilt Galactic Council Station. The chamber where Morlock had delivered his ultimatum now hosted peace negotiations between dozens of species. The Xanthari delegates sat in the back rows, no longer commanding attention from the center of power. Warren carried a datapad containing the latest reports from Xanthari space. The numbers painted a grim picture of economic collapse and social upheaval. Unemployment had reached 40% on the main worlds. Food shortages were becoming common as agricultural production declined. Young Xanthari were leaving their home system in growing numbers, seeking better lives elsewhere. President Moore had called an emergency cabinet meeting to discuss the crisis. Dr. Ryan Foster presented the intelligence reports while Admiral Collins listened with growing concern. Their government is requesting additional humanitarian aid, Foster reported. Medical supplies, food shipments, and technical assistance to restart their civilian industries. How much have we already provided? Moore asked. 12 billion credits worth of supplies and expertise over the past 6 months, more than any other species combined. Collins shook his head. The irony is not lost on me. We're spending more to help them recover than we spent on the entire war effort. But Moore understood the bigger picture. A collapsed Xanthari empire means millions of refugees flooding neighboring systems. It means power vacuums that other aggressive species might fill. It means instability that could spark new conflicts. The decision was made to increase aid rather than reduce it. Humanity would help rebuild the civilization that had tried to destroy them. On the Xanthari homeworld, Mer General Korvac struggled with the transition from military leader to civilian administrator. His provisional government faced challenges that military training had never prepared him for. Economic policy, diplomatic relations, and social programs required skills that warriors did not possess. Dr. Maria Santos arrived on a transport ship carrying the latest shipment of medical equipment. She had volunteered to lead the humanitarian mission despite warnings about potential hostility from the local population. What she found surprised her. Xanthari civilians gathered at the spaceport to help unload the supplies. Families whose sons had died in the war worked alongside humans to distribute food and medicine. Children who had been taught to fear aliens now played with human aid workers. "Why do you help us?" asked Vex Talon, the former military commander, who now served as Santos's liaison. "We tried to destroy you. We called you inferior. We showed no mercy when we thought we were winning." Santos looked at the Xanthari children playing in the medical clinic they had just established. "Because that's what humans do. We help those who need help, even if they were our enemies yesterday." Aid programs were just one part of humanity's post-war strategy. Captain Alex Turner commanded the diplomatic vessel Harmony, leading cultural exchange programs designed to rebuild trust between former enemies. His ship carried Xanthari students to human universities, human teachers to Xanthari schools, and scientists from both species working on joint research projects. Turner found that many young Xanthari were eager to learn about human culture and technology. They had grown up hearing propaganda about human weakness and aggression, but direct contact showed them the truth. Humans were not the monsters their government had described. "Your people are not what we expected," admitted Kala. "Vex, a young Xanthari engineer studying fusion technology on Earth, we were taught that you were violent and primitive. Instead, you were kind and generous." But not everyone was ready to embrace the new reality. On some Xanthari worlds, resistance groups formed around the idea that defeat was temporary and revenge was possible. They blamed their government's weakness rather than more lax aggression for their current situation, Captain. Brad Johnson's intelligence teams monitored these groups carefully. Most were small and poorly organized, more focused on complaining than acting. But a few showed signs of planning actual attacks against human aid workers or pro-human Xanthari leaders. "They're living in the past," Johnson reported to Admiral Collins. "They can't accept that the war is over and they lost. Some of them still think Morlock was right to attack us." The trial of Vex Morlock had become the most watched legal proceeding in galactic history. Held on the neutral world of Kepler Prime, It featured prosecutors from multiple species and evidence of war crimes that shocked even his former supporters. Ambassador Warren attended every session, not out of hatred, but from a sense of duty to ensure justice was served properly. She watched as evidence of Morlock's deception was presented to the galaxy: fabricated intelligence reports, false flag operations, and deliberate attacks on civilian targets painted a picture of a leader consumed by ambition and pride. When the time came for sentencing, Warren stood to address the court. Many expected her to demand the death penalty for the being who had nearly started a galactic war. Instead, she surprised everyone with her recommendation. Counselor Morlock's actions brought suffering to billions of beings across the galaxy, she said, but executing him would only create a martyr for those who still believe in his cause. Instead, let him live with the knowledge of what his pride cost his people. Morlock was sentenced to life in exile on a remote world, where he could contemplate his actions without the ability to influence others. His final words to the court were bitter and unrepentant, but they fell on deaf ears. The galaxy had moved beyond his vision of conquest and domination. 5 years after the war, the changes were undeniable. The Galactic Council operated under new rules that emphasized cooperation over competition. Smaller species that had once feared the great powers now had stronger voices in galactic affairs. Trade flowed more freely as artificial barriers created by aggressive empires were removed. The Zenthari had lost 4 of their 7-star systems as colonies declared independence or joined other alliances. Their population had dropped by millions, as citizens emigrated to worlds offering better opportunities, but those who remained were building something new. Former General Korvac, now elected leader of the Zenthari Republic, signed a comprehensive peace treaty with humanity in a ceremony broadcast across the galaxy. The document established permanent diplomatic relations, joint research programs, and mutual defense agreements. And we lost an empire, Korvac said during the signing ceremony, but we gained something more valuable. We gained the respect that comes from admitting our mistakes and working to fix them. President Moore, now in her 2nd term, watched the ceremony from her office on Earth. The woman who had faced an impossible choice 6 years earlier had guided humanity through its greatest challenge and emerged stronger. Dr. Ellen Clark, working in a joint research facility on the former Zenthari colony of Beta Centauri, made a discovery that symbolized the new era. Her team of human and Zenthari scientists had developed a new terraforming technique that could restore damaged ecosystems in half the time of previous methods. "This is what we accomplish when we work together," she told her mixed crew. "We create. Instead of destroying, we build instead of tearing down." The story reached its conclusion on a quiet evening when a young Zenthar student named Zara approached Dr. Santos at the medical center on the Zenthar homeworld. "Doctor," the child asked, in carefully practiced human English, "why did your people choose to help us when they could have destroyed us?" Santos knelt down to meet the child's curious yellow eyes. "Because destroying our enemies would have made us just like them. True strength comes from knowing when not to use your power." The child thought about this for a moment, then nodded. With the wisdom that comes naturally to those too young to understand hatred, "When I grow up, I want to be strong like humans." Above them, ships from dozens of species moved through space lanes that were now free from the threat of aggressive empires. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson about the price of threatening those who valued peace above conquest. Vex Morlock sat alone on his exile world, watching those same ships pass overhead. Each one represented opportunities his arrogance had cost his people. His planet lived in regret, but the galaxy had learned to live in hope. The war that was supposed to prove Zenthari superiority had instead demonstrated humanity's wisdom. Not the wisdom of the warrior, but the wisdom of the healer, not the strength that destroys, but the strength that builds in the end. Humanity's greatest victory was not defeating their enemies, but turning them into friends.